Through you, Mr. Chair, we're really hoping on behalf of the director that you guys really put him through his paces this morning. Sorry, just a bit of humor to start.
We've already had that discussion, so.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I guess I'm appreciative that it's 11:25 and our goal is fairly clear. I'm hopeful that we'd be done at noon. Just a thought. Okay. Starting in at highways, transportation, and environmental services, perhaps, looking at KPIs. I think Council has seen this a variety of times. I bring your attention to 2018 KPI budgets. You notice that the PCI on the road system pavement condition indice will up a little bit as we've made improvements in 2017 to a variety of roads. Completed paving recently, County Road 1, about to pave County Road 9 in Colpoy, pave County Road 6 in South Bruce. So yes, I anticipate that PCI or roads will go up gently in 2018. BCI, Bridge Condition Indice, I imagine it's going to be similar in 2018 as 17. As we've undertaken minor repairs in 17, you'll see a very aggressive program for bridges in 2018. I'm excited. And I see you two are, Mr. Warden. Good. When it comes to cost of maintenance of paved roads, we anticipate a minor increase as the department sees a gentle transition from less in-house construction to more on-the-ground maintenance activities. Winter maintenance, Mr. Warden's always difficult to anticipate, but budget-wise, we expect gentle cost increases, 1.8% increased cost in salt, so we've identified a gentle increase in per kilometer cost for winter maintenance. Waste management. Carrie Meyer, our organizer, is completing the 2016 Waste Management Report, which aggregates all the data from the individual municipalities on all their individual land site reports. We anticipate that the amount of landfill site available end of 2017 will be 35 years, and we suspect that 1 year's consumption would make it 34 in 2018. Finally, we anticipate MHSW collection to be modestly higher in 2018.
Yep.
On your cost per lane, in 2015 the actual was 422.
Yes, in 2015 we had a bit of a struggle with crack sealing and a bit of a struggle with shouldering. And we were very aggressive, more aggressive in 2016. So yes, it was very low in 2015. Maybe a bit of a sort of a misunderstanding on the subtleties of carrying funds over from one year to another. That I think getting closer to end of maintenance season, we had hoped to carry over some funds for shouldering, which is a huge ticket item in maintenance. And rightfully so, we did not, and it's reflected in 2015 actuals.
But you said a sort of a general increase of from 762 to projecting 850, and you're suggesting that is partially due to contracting out, or?
Actually, it's more a reflection, if I recall our committee discussion just weeks ago, is probably an era of strong construction and weak operational effort in the department.
Right.
And we're surmising that we're going to enhance operational effort, roadside pavement work, bridge repair work, traffic control, operation maintenance in the future. And this demonstrates that trend.
Good, thank you.
Moving towards the initiatives, I think I'll move all the way into the operational versus capital initiatives. So the operational initiatives is one is to implement the new organizational structure. Again, there's been some changes in the department. We're addressing retaining a engineering manager. We hope the individual will be on stream in early 2018, and subsequently we'll see a shift of efforts from a variety of people in the office to the new position, and we hope to implement that in 2018. As discussed this morning, is the lean processing. Our office people have been trained in the lean processing, and they're excited, as am I, on looking at some of our processes and methods and making them more lean. Undertaking number 3 was a feasibility study for waste management to look at a permanent depot for MHSW. And Kerry Meyer's got a variety of potential solutions, whether it's a site in the north, a permanent site in the south, permanent one in the north, or having an example where there's a unit that's moved around throughout the year to different sites, but has the ability to collect material and hold it until such time as it's transported elsewhere, as opposed to our model right now, which is going landfill to landfill to landfill and having a contractor collect and then ship. Looking at the capital initiatives, we naturally are excited about the environmental assessment for the West Road. I'm very optimistic that it's going to mature nicely in 2018 to facilitate work in 2019. Undertake the capital road program. We'll talk more of which roads are a component of the 2018 program in the capital portion of the budget. And undertake, the third item is undertake the bridge and culvert capital program. Again, the dollar figure you see here is the effect on the levy. This is our transition, our contribution to the bridge reserve. If you recall, a bit unique in our approach is we have an annual contribution into a reserve, and then we draw down the value from the reserve. For example, we anticipate the reserve for bridge reserve at the end of 2017 will be in excess of $5 million. I think the data you received this morning identifies an anticipation of it being a little under $4 million, but if you recall, our original budget for 2017 had included spending $1.5 million on the first year of the McCurdy Bridge, and that did not materialize. The tender for the McCurdy Bridge closes next Wednesday, and we anticipate costs in 18 and possibly 19, and we'll talk to that a bit more in just a moment. Mr. Chairman, I think that was our business plan. I'd entertain questions.
Any questions for Brian? Hearing none, moving on.
Operationally, operational budget for the department. Naturally, we're on the dashboard, so I direct everyone to the Excel or the PDF to the dashboard. And naturally, I speak to items that are a bit in red. And the first one that is in red involves our equipment. If you recall, the department runs a cost center for our equipment. So when our equipment, trucks and loaders and graders, pickup trucks, they go out and do work on an activity, the hours are charged to the activity and they become a revenue to the equipment account. So we're anticipating the equipment account to cost $1.5 million. And so far in the operational budget, we've allocated $1.16 million of cost to the various activities. Consequently, the very red item, that's $352,788, is what we expect to be equipment costs attributed to capital, which we have not fulfilled or filled in yet on the capital side. So that's the reason for the very large red value. Moving down, looking at the variety of programs we have, you see some red again in some of the salaries. I can identify at the end of the day, the salary increase would be 6.8%. Again, are reflective of some recent changes in the salary review, as well as traditional increase in cost of living. Looking down into the programs, we see a variety of red for the administration program, as well as the paved, as well as culverts and bridges, and we'll talk about that in more detail as we move ahead. Looking at the bottom, Mr. Chairman, we're comforted to see that our net impact on our operational side is a 2% increase, or a dollar value in the amount of $137,000. Moving ahead to total department analysis tab is I went through this rather quickly and felt that I'm better to go through individual programs because we can see clearer what some of the changes are. So while the aggregate analysis identifies again that at the bottom we're reflecting a 2% increase from 2017-2018, let's actually look at the individual programs. Under roadways administration, we see that the major changes on roadways administrations is our transfer to reserves. If I can offer 2017, we transferred $244,000 to pay back the borrowing we had done for the Wyerton shop. In 2018, I hope I said 2017. In 2017, yes, we directed $244,000. In 2018, we're reducing that to $158,000. And so operationally, we are going to be expending funds to pay back the borrowing we had done for the Wyerton shop. So that was a major impact. The other major impact is some shift administratively, is you see some wage increases, and we're feeling there's going to be more of our non-union people be charging time to administration than has been in the past. And naturally, the general increase in costs are reflected in that large amount, $96,000. Moving to paved roadways is the items under paved roadways is we're anticipating doing more spray patching for local municipalities. So under growth, you see additional costs of $19,414. That is balanced by an additional revenue of $19,414. Is we're getting more requests from local municipalities to use our spray patcher. So we go spray patch and revenue offset by additional expenditure. We also noticed that under contract services, we've increased that by about $25,000, reflecting increased crack sealing that we need to do in 2018 versus our budgeted amount in the past. Moving to unpaved roads, a modest increase in wages. This is the one that attracted the 44% on the dashboard because it's such a small program, yet with such a large increase in wage. So whereas the increase in wage was $1,100, $1,600 salaries and wages. It was on a very small base. Yeah, I see. I'm a little off to the side there. Okay. We better press on. I'm not seeing that little shift. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ward.
Are you going to go to bridges and?
Yes, I am. For bridges and culverts, we're noticing that we're going to enhance our culvert maintenance. And when you look down column L, you'll see an enhancement in a variety of things in material and contract work in order that we enhance our small centerline culvert replacement in 2018. Under traffic, we see, under operations and roadsides, we see our adjust to base being a negative $38,000. It's a recognition that we had a very strong allocation in 2017 to municipal drains. We're anticipating that we're not going to see as many municipal drain assessments in 2018. So consequently, that fairly large reduction. We're also anticipating that we're going to be doing more brushing. So you'll see more brushing added into our labor line. Moving to winter control. Winter control is very similar as it has been in the past, yet we acknowledge that we are our increased cost for salt. Again, our salt consumption is quite large. We're in that $800,000 a year figure, so a small increase does have a major impact on the cost. And for completeness, our analysis on equipment time, as I mentioned beforehand, this is the costs of running our equipment, the full costs, and I had mentioned that the total is $1.5 million, made up generally of a third wages, a third repair parts, and a third our own fleet costs. Looking at waste management, is for waste disposal, a very stable account as the department continues to, as I mentioned, accumulate data to create an annual report as we aggregate the data of all the local municipal landfill sites into the impact on the county, as well as offer assistance to the local municipalities when they wish to consider new initiatives or get up to speed with the very changing nature of waste disposal. Waste diversion, our MHSW collection. You'll note that the budget is dominated by contract services. We're tendering this year. We anticipate a small increase in the tendered costs to about $170,000. Again, that dominates that account. If I can bring your attention to an additional feature that the department will be withdrawing $20,000 from reserve in order to manage the review of whether we have a permanent site implemented likely in 2019. That $20,000 comes out of a reserve that's presently in the amount of about $1 million, our waste management reserve. Very good, Mr. Chairman. That is a return now to the dashboard. And as we look down the variety of programs, we had noted where we had increased the costs in several, and the outcome of doing that at the bottom of the day was a 2% increase in operations. We'd entertain questions on operations.
Any questions? Hearing none. Capital.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In capital, we direct your attention to reserves. Well, we're making a recommendation to transfer to reserves almost $2 million. If you can recall again, is our strategy where we take a value for bridges, we take that those funds, which in 2018 is, we'll see it in just a moment, I think it's about $1.9 million, direct that to the reserve, and then we withdraw out of the reserve for the actual activities in the year for bridges. And in this year, it's going to amount to in excess of about $6 million. Consequently, two reserves in the amount of a little under $2 million. When it comes to from reserves, this reflects how much we take out, that $6 million we take out of reserves to use for bridges in 2018. So let's look in depth, starting with equipment and housing. And for the equipment and housing, we've got a variety of items that we wish to purchase. So we're hoping to acquire 2 tandems, a loader, 3 half-tons, and a mower. That amounts to the $925,000. The $33,000 for the equipment, I do mention that equipment's often the connotation of that being the bigger equipment. Well, in this case, it's smaller equipment, such as compressors and small purchases within the shops. And the final was a transfer to reserves of that account, and that was transfers for a grader in the future, as well as a copier for IT. So moving ahead to paved roads for capital. I'm going to take a broad brush at this, Mr. Warden, if you don't mind. Is looking at 2017, we had a net expenditure of $7.7 million. A dominant component of that expenditure was a transfer from reserves into the account of about $2.2 million. So by the time, when you look at fuel tax as well as our levy impact, in 2017, it was about $5.5 million. And that was the basis upon which we springboarded into an implementation of the 2016 Asset Management Plan. The Asset Management Plan in 2016 had suggested that we address higher funding to both bridges and roads. For instance, in roads, our past expenditure in 2017 had been $5.5 million. The report had suggested that the allocation should be in excess of $10 million. The plan suggested that we transition from present practice, the $5.5 million 2017, into inevitably a stronger program for roads, is that we take a 15-year timeline to do that. And doing that on a 15-year timeline reflected an increase in that account of about $300,000. The asset management plan also said, don't forget inflation. each year ensure that you keep track of inflation on the base, the $5.5 million base. So at 2%, on the $5.5 million base was a little over $100,000. Consequently, you'll see a recommendation that our 5-year program increased by, on average, about $400,000 a year. So looking at 18, the $5.5 million from 17, add the $400,000, I may have said $500,000, the $400,000, which is composed of the 15-year transition of $300,000 and the inflation value of $100,000, would suggest that we direct $5.9 million to paved roads in 2018. Consequently, in 19, 20, 21, and 22, those are the increments as we're recommending that you implement the 15-year transition strategy plus inflation into roads capital. When we talk of the physical road program, I have been unable to sort of formulate that, and I intend to bring that to council in the near future. We have projects, potential projects such as Frank Street in Wyerton, Jenny Street in Wyerton, County Road 10 south of Hepworth, Lucknow Urban, the work that is now being prepared. The ECA has been received, and completing that work from County Road 1 to the west in 2018. The CAW road, we're hoping to put the storm sewer, if not some work starting at the lake working east in 2018. We're hopeful to make put some funds aside or do some work on Yonge Street with respect to an unusual drainage feature that exists today. In South Bruce, we're hoping to do the North Hill and Formosa. And in the north, the middle north, we're hoping to do some work on County Road 5 and County Road 10 north of Tara on County Road 10. Naturally, in this envelope of funds, we've got West Road environmental assessment that you saw as a part of our business plan in the amount of $200,000 incorporated in that $5.9 million to further the environmental assessment. Also, yesterday we made application on behalf of the county for OCIF application-based funding for Bruce Road 3, starting at Highway 9, to resurface and pave that aged section of road. And we have the county's contribution portion in the 2018 capital budget. Moving to bridges. Again, Mr. Chairman, I direct people's attention to the transfer to reserve line. In 2017, oh, there it is. In 2017, we had directed $1.654 million to the reserve. Again, I reflect back on the 2016 Capital Asset Management Plan that acknowledged our contribution in 2017 of $1.654 million towards bridges. They suggested that a more appropriate funding level, annual funding level, was in excess of $4 million. And again, using their guidelines of a 15-year transition, that would mean an increase of $168,000 a year over the 15-year transition period. And I remind Council again, as the importance that the plan identified is to maintain that inflationary base of about $33,000 in 2018 for a total of roughly $200,000. So what you see, and I direct you to the line of transfer to reserves in the long-range program, is increasing the funds from 17, which was $1.65 million, the $200,000 to the 18 recommendation of $1.85 million, to 19, increasing it roughly $200,000 a year. That is the revenue stream towards the bridge reserve. Now looking at the 2016 bridge work, we've got a long list of bridge work that we're considering in 2018. What we have done is I've included $3 million of the $6 million and $40,000. I included $3 million from McCurdy Bridge. That is the entire county obligation, not the obligation of 2 local municipalities towards that bridge. I did it in 1 year because there is the potential that we award the contract in weeks or months. They could do it all in a year. Like, they've got that option to do. So because our bridge reserves in the amount of about $5 million, my anticipation at year end is I've taken the precaution of including all $3 million for the McCurdy Bridge in 2017. Other projects are Mill Creek Bridge. We've got a strategy working with Saugeen Shores to see that rehabilitation proceed soon. You are aware we made a presentation where we hope to tender that bridge in probably 6 weeks to close just before, just in December. Then when we enter arrangements, we and Saugeen Shore enters arrangements with an adjacent developer. And they are likely responsible for a large share of cost with respect to that tender. So that's maturing nicely, and it'll be a cost in 2017 in the amount of about $1.5 million. And then we've got a variety of other bridge repairs. Down in the Teeswater area, the Reed Bridge on County Road 6, west of Teeswater, we need to do repairs. We've got some repairs on the Old Shanks Bridge, that's on County Road 3. This is the old truss that's been used for recreational purposes, needs some minor attention. We'd like to have a resolve for the Erin Township Shed Bridge on the old county road in Invermay. There's a culvert on 86 that we hope to make some attention to. And there are 2 box culverts on the Grey Bruce line north of Clifford that we're working with Grey County on. That is a part of our total cost of $6,040,000 in 2018. And we've got a variety of bridges, as you can see, as we in 19, 20, 21, and 22, as we take funds out of that reserve to make accomplishments, some of which are bridge replacements, which we could bring to your attention. In 2020, we're hopeful to replace the Chesley Main Street Bridge, and the other very large bridges in 2022 is the Paisley Downtown Bridge to be replaced. So those funds are within those larger envelopes that you see in 2020 and 2022. And again, it's going to take more discussions with the municipality, specifically here in Elderslie when we're dealing with Paisley and Chesley, because naturally it's within their municipality, and we'd probably entertain their thoughts on the scheduling. So, Mr. Chairman, that was our thoughts on bridges. Finally, there is the traffic control program, and that's fairly stable. So in order to meet our achievement, our goal of achievement, I'm going to return to the dashboard, and I'm just going to double check revenue. I apologize. I'm going to go back to paved roads and bridges because I didn't touch base on revenue, which is highly important. Let's take a look at revenue. For paved roads. Council has been very supportive of directing federal gas tax and provincial formula-based OCIF towards the Highways Department. And we wish to acknowledge there are some large changes that have occurred between 2017 and 2018. In 2017, for OCIF formula-based, we received a little under $300,000. We're earmarked to receive nearly $420,000 in 2018, and in 2019, $650,000. And quite frankly, what we're seeing is the impact of the transition, 15-year transition for both bridges and roads have been buffered by those increases of provincial increases. I can identify that the federal tax increase, which is in the amount of almost $2 million, which is mammoth. It's a huge portion of our capital program. Our capital program for roads is about $7.5 million. My gosh, a lot of it is funding from province and federal, a lot from federal. So I think that we have, again, and wish to continue acknowledging how much funds we get from the federal government and the willpower of council to see that it be directed towards transportation infrastructure. I think we're wearing that down, Mr. Chairman. That was a bit of an important point to bring up. We return to maybe the summary. We return to the summary, and we note that the impact on the levy of the proposal we're making this morning for capital is a 9.4% increase. But I remind committee that our operational account had been a very modest increase of 2%. The net impact, perhaps, was 5.4% or $672,000 increase in the levy because of the Highway Department submission this morning. That would be our presentation.
Questions?
Well, could you repeat that last comment? Well, you just said about the net impact on the
Oh,
total value.
excellent point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, actually, is, again, I don't have it on the screen, but the operational impact of almost $8 million was only a 2% increase. We do have on the screen the capital impact on the levy of 9.4%. But when you balance them and prorate them, the total impact on the department is about 5.43 or 5.34%. And its dollar value is $672,000. Yes.
Would you like to share your hand with the viewing public here this morning? Kelly?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we anticipate that there's going to be a lot of need to discuss all capital budgets, but in particular the transportation and environmental.
Ann?
Thanks, Brian. It's always good to have the detail on your budget. But I was driving over here this morning, and I was noting the Kinloss Corner, and I think it's just going to look excellent. I think being able to go straight through there, I think your department has done a great job of restructuring that corner. It'll be a big advantage to the truckers and other people that use it regularly.
Yes, I thank you very much, and on behalf of the department, the department did a great job, and it culminated in a lot of hot mix in the last 2 weeks. And yes, there's some added features we're going to be adding to that intersection in the near future. We're working with MTO, and we found them very cooperative on this job.
Oh, very good. No, it looks great.
I also noticed a couple of vehicles driving up that road this morning that maybe weren't county vehicles.
It's too tempting.
Just a thought, Brian, the money that we're going to be receiving for OSEF is going to be increasing a little over $200,000. Could we be maybe using that to offset the transfer to reserves for bridges and leaving that? I'm just looking for possibly another couple $100,000 savings.
The proposal this morning had included the entire OSIF formula-based contribution in paved roads, but it would be indifferent whether it went to bridges or roads. It wouldn't alter the 9.4%.
Just putting that out there.
Yes.
Paul?
So to alter that 9.4, and I agree, we certainly will be looking for some money from capital somewhere in the county, and unfortunately, highways is always the one traditionally for many, many years to get picked on. So your McCurdy Bridge thing was interesting, though, that you've, in this year's capital, in 2018 capital, you've financed the entire project instead of spreading it 2 years.
Yes.
If that contract comes in, and it's a 2-year project, which typically it is, that changes your 2018 capital significantly.
It only does in the dollar value, but not the impact on the levy. Because again, that's our purpose of directing a revenue stream into the reserve, and then the actual expenditure comes out of the reserve. So there's not a levy impact if a bridge takes 2 years or 1 year to complete. So if it became over 2 years, there remains no impact on that 9.4% because the funds remain in the reserve and to be withdrawn in 2000. What you'd see is 2019 bridge removal from reserve would be substantially higher. So excellent point. Why don't we go to bridges? What we would see is, so in 18, we're suggesting that we withdraw $6 million, including the $3 million. If we only spend 1.5, that means we only withdraw 4.5 million. But that would likely mean that in 2019, instead of withdrawing 1.874, we withdraw 3.274 million. So we're just shifting along what we withdraw out of the reserve, not the impact on the levy, because it's uniform on our transfer to reserve.
So if you put less into the reserves, does that not affect the impact on the levy? I think what you're suggesting is that for the McCurdy Bridge, excuse me, in 2018, you'd put the total project cost into the reserve, and shift it out, whether it takes 1 year or 2 years. And I guess I'm suggesting that you're not putting the total cost of the McCurdy Bridge into reserve in 1 year.
I might reword that,
Yeah, that'd
Mr.
be
Chairman. Again, we're not putting the entire amount in the reserve for McCurdy Bridge. We're only putting in the uniform revenue stream, and the recommendation is 1.85 million in 2018. We're putting that in reserve, but we're taking out of reserve the $6 million. And again, we've done the spreadsheets and identified that we're starting 2018 with a $5 million reserve. We add the $1.85 million, and then we take out the $6 million or the 4.5, depending on if the McCurdy Bridge goes 1 or 2 years. And so the funds stay in the reserve, not an impact on the levy. So consequently, like if you look down the bottom line of our net expenditures for bridges, it is what we're putting into reserve. Like if you look down the very bottom part of the sheet for net requirement, that is what we're putting into reserve each year. So the net impact on the levy is just this uniform. Yeah, this is transfer to reserve. This uniform revenue stream.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I think you got through to me there. So it's the same amount. We're putting into reserve the same amount, whether we're doing 1 bridges or 6 bridges or 0 bridges. We're going to put the same in annually. Yep. And I have to support that because we know we got a long list of bridges that needs repaired or replaced. One up at Invermay, we need a new one there next year too. So,
if I can offer, Mr. Chairman, these projects do ebb and flow with approvals. We're still moving ahead with the approval required for McCurdy's Bridge, and it's not an easy go. And I know we're going to be, we're talking with Treasury about getting letters of credit to our federal counterparts to move ahead with permit taking. So it's unusual. There are unusual arrangements to move these projects ahead.
Milt?
Yeah, just on that bridge topic, Paul was on there. We're talking about the 2018 increasing their transfer to reserve by about a couple $100,000.
Correct.
So we're talking about, which I agree with too. If you were to reduce that $100,000, that would take impact.
Yes. Yep.
And this doesn't include either possible federal funding for bridges or provincial, because we do have I just envision that we will be getting some money down the road for bridges or roads. That's my thought process. So positive thinking, yes.
If I could, Mr. Warden, my sense is it's going to be directed at bridges. Bridges always seem to be uncertain. We've probably mentioned to council a number of times how most of the bridges in our municipality have been built in the 50s and 60s. They're going to mature in the next 10 to 15, 20 years. And there's going to be a huge onslaught of bridge work required.
Ann?
So on that point, the rollout of this infrastructure money, do you have any idea when it's going to happen? You keep hearing about it, and you go to conferences in the federal.
Yeah.
They keep talking. It has to go to infrastructure, but I keep waiting, and I haven't heard any timelines yet. I just wondered if staff has heard of some timelines.
No, we have not.
Okay.
But we have, if I can offer, we've probably seen the trigger in the past of upper levels of government funding, and it's usually a mishap. Yes.
I will wait for the mishap, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, anything else for Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you, sir.